Hello, my friends. The poet who was killed by his own poem. This is an ancient story about the Chinese poet Li Bai, sometimes called Li Po or even Li 12, because he was the 12th child in a big family, living in the 8th century, that's 1200 years ago, in China during the Tang dynasty. He's still very much revered and well known today in eastern parts, and like so much Chinese poetry, I find him very refreshing, a wonderful different insight into life, into general reflections, and the way he talks, his imagery and his quiet contemplation at times, in spite of quite a turbulent lifestyle. Li Bai is famous for two things: his great love of the moon and his great love of alcohol. Sadly, it proved in the end a fatal combination for him, and Li Bai died, as tradition goes, in a strange way. He wrote many poems. He was obsessed, it seems, with the moon, wrote many poems about the moon. I'm going to read one just to give you a flavour of the sort of thing he wrote. This is called Drinking Alone by Moonlight, which is apparently what he did quite a lot. Here we are. It's in translation, of course, but there are some very fine English translations of Chinese poetry. Among the blossoms with a pot of wine, I drink alone, no friend beside me. I raise my cup, invite the moon. We are three, the moon, my shadow, and me. The moon does not know how to drink, and my shadow only dances as I do. Yet still, for this brief moment, we share the joy of spring. I sing, and the moon sways gently. I dance, and my shadow scatters widely. While we are awake, let us be happy. When we must part, may we meet again in that far bright river of stars. I think that's a delightful way of expressing what is a fairly commonplace happening, really, having a glass of wine in the moonlight. A man alone, and yet not alone, accompanied by light and darkness and, of course, his own imagination. Well, there's a well-known story about Li Bai and his sad death, and it may or may not be true. I like to think it probably is true. It goes like this. One night, late in his life, Li Bai was doing what he really enjoyed, travelling. He did a lot of that throughout his life, all over China. And on this occasion, he was travelling in a boat down the great Yangtze river. The water was calm, but the current was strong, and it was night time. The moon was shining, a full moon, and the wine was flowing. Rather too much, one might think. The moon hung like a great lantern in the sky, and Li Bai saw it reflected in the dark waters of the Yangtze from his boat. And the reflection seemed to be moving, trembling, beckoning, and in his rather inebriated state, he reached out to embrace the reflection in the water, and alas, he leaned out too far and slipped and fell into the flowing current of the Yangtze, and his swimming wasn't strong enough to prevail, and sadly he drowned trying to embrace the moon that he had written so much poetry about over his lifetime. And so in a sense, he was killed by the thing he loved most, the two things he loved most, the moon and alcohol. But I suppose, at least you can say, it was quite a poetic way to go. I like that story very much. I like Li Bai's poetry very much. I like all Chinese poetry very much. And come to think of it, I like all poetry very much. Thanks for listening.